Wow, it's quite a task to come after all of these people that I deeply admire and respect, and trying to also incorporate some of their thoughts and ideas into my own remarks. So bear with me. Where to begin? Well, as I look across to the Lester B. Pearson building, where our Global Affairs Department is, I think I'll start with the former Prime Minister after whom the building was named. As you may know, in his 1957 Nobel lecture, Lester Bowles Pearson addressed the four faces of peace. And so today I'll focus on the fourth pillar, if you will, which is peace and people, and in particular, young people, and how educating and empowering them can indeed change the world. Mr. Pearson asked, how can there be peace without people understanding each other? And how can people understand each other if they don't know each other? Throughout my life, I've been guided by Mr. Pearson's words and his deeds. In fact, in the late 1980s, when studies were showing that a quarter of Canadian young people were having regular nightmares about the threat of nuclear war, I was particularly inspired by Mr. Pearson's commitment to peace, nuclear disarmament, and non-proliferation. And so at the age of 16, myself and 3 other Montreal teens took a full year off school to organize and undertake a national speaking tour. We spoke to 1 in 4 high schools about the threat of nuclear war and what we as young people could do about it, even though we were too young to vote. We went on to accept speaking engagements in the United States, the former Soviet Union, and the UN, where we had the opportunity to serve on the official Canadian delegation to the special session on disarmament. One of the last stops on our speaking tour was Lester B. Pearson College of the Pacific, where I vividly remember the engagement and idealism of the students. I think some of our graduates from Lester B. Pearson College are with us today. Through these experiences, I learned from a very young age that through hard work and through teamwork, through preparation and determination, perspiration and collaboration, that almost anything is possible. I also learned that you can make great friends and have a lot of fun while trying to change the world. And I also learned, to General Dallair's point, that Canada needs a national youth service where young people can work in their communities here in Canada and overseas to learn about themselves, their various identities, and about Canada's important role in the world. Following the SAGE tour, it was the close of the Cold War, and I, like many peace activists, turned my attention to another crucial aspect of peace, sustainability. And so at the age of 19, I decided that I was too old to speak to high school students in a way that would empower my peers to take action. So one of the other SAGE members, Solidarité Anti-Guerre Étudiante, and I launched another national tour, but this time we recruited younger, more diverse teenagers from across the country to undertake the tour. And the SAVE tour, or Solidarité Action Unie vers l'Environnement, went on to become an annual tour for years to come. I went on to have the opportunity to serve as one of 2 global youth ambassadors to the 1992 Earth Summit, chaired by the late, great Maurice Strong, who we recently memorialized here in Ottawa. I became particularly passionate about the preservation of the diversity of the world's biological resources and the need to exercise stewardship for the equitable benefit of people. I also became deeply involved in combating climate change. The twin issues of biodiversity and global climate change continue to be, as you know, a matter of grave concern, generating worldwide activism and action, particularly among our young people whose very future is at stake. These issues became the subject matter of my graduate studies at the London School of Economics, the focus of my work as an international reporter for the UN, the themes for courses I taught at McGill University, as well as considerations in my work as a senior advisor in the Paul Martin government on international cooperation. And ultimately, they became the focus of my advocacy in co-founding Al Gore's Climate Reality Project in Canada. Through my work in the areas of peace and sustainability, I became more and more convinced that of the role of education must play in uniting people with diverse interests and perspectives and perceptions in seeking the common goal of peace. And while education in its broadest sense is necessary for common understanding, it's the education of leaders that is essential for the world to reach the goal of peace. Educating and empowering a new generation of leaders is fundamental if we're to tackle the litany of global problems, social, environmental, and economic, that we ourselves as humans are creating. As one of the founding members of the Banff Forum, I have witnessed and participated in the development of one of the most influential networks of younger, so 30, 40, sort of Gen X Canadians, if you will, whose annual gathering fosters civil discourse on a range of national and global issues. In fact, unfortunately, she's not with us here, but Catherine McKenna, our Minister of Environment, was our most recent executive director, and François-Philippe Champagne, who's our parliamentary secretary on finance, was the most recent president of the Banff Forum. So these people go on to exercise leadership at every level of Canadian society, including the highest levels of government. I'm very pleased to see that global shapers like Giovanna, who just spoke, have been instrumental in supporting this event. They're the kind of millennials of the World Economic Forum. I'm part of a group called the Young Global Leaders. We're sort of the Gen Xers of the World Economic Forum. And I'm pleased to see both supporting this event. And so through this Young Global Leaders Network, we were able to apply the same approach we did at the Banff Forum, that is in exchanging ideas, but also collaborating on real-world projects for a more peaceful and sustainable future. For over 7 years as president of the Jean Sauvé Foundation, I worked with an amazing group of young leaders from around the world, some of whom are here today. They tackle a collective project. This year they're working on the very relevant theme of public leadership for culturally diverse societies, and specifically looking at integration of refugees in Quebec society. They live, learn, and lead together. They hone their leadership skills, and they go on to become doctors, journalists, lawyers, politicians, parents, artists, etc. Let's go back to Pearson College, and I'll wrap up here. A year ago, after over a quarter century since I first visited Pearson College, I returned, but this time as president. I promised myself and the Pearson community that I would be relentless in championing the work of Lester B. Pearson and the United World College, whose mission, by the way, is directly relevant to the theme of these peace talks. The mission is to make education a force to unite peoples, cultures, and nations toward a more peaceful and sustainable future. Lester B. Pearson College was not merely named after the former Prime Minister. It was actually his vision to bring this college to Canada. He was deeply interested in the United World College movement, and he was convinced that we needed a college in Canada where, quote, students will be welcome regardless of race, religion, or politics, students from all levels of society who will be genuine representatives of their own peoples. The college went on to be founded in 1974, the first UWC in the Americas and one of the first international baccalaureate schools in the world. Every year, thousands of students, most of whom are on partial if not full scholarship, from over 150 countries graduate from one of the United World Colleges. They live and learn together through a program that fully engages their heads, so learning through study, their hearts, learning through compassion and service, and their hands, learning through experience. It's a 2-year program that transforms their lives, and they go on to transform the world. Through the decades, from my engagement as a youth activist on global issues to engaging young people from around the world, I've learned that educating and empowering the next generation is not a nice to have. We often pay lip service to youth engagement, and at the same time, we think we could, pass the buck to the next generation, that they'll somehow solve these problems. I don't believe in either approach. I believe in working in partnership with young people. And working in partnership with the next generation is essential to changing the world, to addressing what's called the ingenuity gap. And that is that as the scale, scope, and complexity of our problems increase, or as they grow, so too must we engage our next generation of leaders who embrace complexity, innovation, and diversity, not as something to be tolerated, but something to be celebrated, so that we can keep pace with and ultimately overcome these global challenges. In conclusion, it's been my great privilege and my ongoing privilege, really my life's work, to work with these incredible leaders from around the world. It reinforces my sense of practical idealism, which is that we have to have high hopes and aspirations, but we need to be very practical about how we achieve them. And also my sense of operational optimism, which is there's plenty of reasons to be pessimistic about the future if you look at the data, but we must act as if there's hope. Thank you.